Hello there and welcome back to Midlife Crisis. I'm Cheryl. For the past few weeks we've been discussing disappointments and controlling emotions. Well, today I'd like to sit and talk in details on the different experiences that are causing these disappointments. When we have losses, especially in the family, the things that go on, the things that you experience, sometimes you're not even out of the funeral and there's fighting. It's just like we are not feeling anymore. When you look at the way we're dealing with one another, family members, friends, it's very painful. And these are the disappointments that you have to be able to cope with. You've gone all these years trying to raise your children, whether it's with the other parent or alone, and there's just no respect. And the way that the elderly are being treated, it's a lot to be witnessing, to be experiencing, and to still move on like nothing is going on. And this is where the emotional intelligence that we've been talking about, it's going to be helpful, because you have to learn to turn the other cheek on all of these painful things that you're seeing. In general, we're having impacts on the experiences as we move into our midlife years. And these experiences, these challenges, something breaks in a lot of us because we're not able to cope. I've been having my challenges as well. I lost my dad last year. My mom, as I mentioned, has onset dementia, and there's a lot of different things that you're seeing that you weren't expecting to take place, and you have come to the point where you need to make adjustments so that you can survive, so that you can stay healthy. People are just not behaving, and who's to say who's wrong and who's right, but it's what makes sense to you, because like I said, we all have our private talk show and what we believe is happening, but what is the real story? Because they always say, there's three sides to a story: your side, my side, and what is actually taking place. And so who's to say what's wrong and what's right? The point is, what you're feeling is real, and you have to be able to identify with what kind of impact is taking on your system. You have to make a decision on what kind of environment you're going to be in to stay healthy, who you're going to keep in your circle to stay balanced. These are all decisions that you're going to have to make, because these disappointments that I'm talking about, our emotions can start going awry if you're not careful, if you're not able to control it. You have to make sure that you're not experiencing these negative emotions like envy and jealousy, bitterness, vindictiveness. What side are you on? Are you on the positive side? Are you causing the problems, or are you receiving it? All that's going on, all of the disappointments that I'm talking about, it's your decision to make. You can't control what's happening around you, but you can control how you respond to it and what kind of effect it's going to take on your life. You have to make a decision on how you're going to stay healthy, balanced, and make yourself happy. And when I talk happiness, we get one shot at this thing called life. And with all that's happening, we have to come to terms with, are we going to be consumed by these negative experiences, these disappointments, or are we going to reason with it and be able to function where we are staying abreast of things and moving forward with what we know we have to do? And it takes focus. This takes training. Like, you have to be conscious of it. It is a lot that we deal with in midlife years. We are all having these experiences that I'm talking about. We're all responding to it differently. But overall, you have to make a decision on whether or not these things are going to impact you, but that you're working to maintain your fruit of the Spirit, where you are working to keep yourself healthy, stable, and happy. And that comes from within. Like, you're not supposed to look for someone to give that to you. It's happiness. It's not something that anyone can do for you. You have to have that inside. Do not give anyone control of your happiness, because if they sense that they have that kind of power, that's a very serious problem for you, because for some reason we are not maturing as we advance in age. It is just not happening for a lot of us. And it's important to be able to identify with who is threatening that happiness when you are working to maintain your peace. Because, like we said before, constant sadness can bring on depression, and it is understood now that loneliness can actually bring on heart disease and later advance into dementia, which is something that is rampant among us now. So we are having these experiences, we are dealing with these disappointments. We've got to learn how to cope with them. It has to do with emotions. We talked about emotional intelligence and what it means. You have to be conscious of your environment and self, but it's a lot more than that. You have to be able to control these different emotions when we're having these negative experiences that are challenging our happiness and our balance. And it's all around. We are very routine anyways as human beings, so when you have to make these decisions, we're talking watching our aging parents going awry, having to cut important friendships and relationships with family members because they're not doing the right thing, disrespectful adult children, loss of a family member, a close friend, loss of a job that you've been on for many years, having to walk away from a marriage that you were looking to go into the golden years with. It's just a lot of things, a lot of disappointments, and a lot of changes that we have to make as we go along. And these things are threatening our balance, our happiness, and our health. And not to be selfish, but you cannot let that happen. You've got to put up a fight. A lot of us turn more to faith because that has to be in there somewhere. If you don't have anything you believe in, then how are you getting through a lot of the things that we have to cope with in midlife years? I'm not going to sit here and talk religion, but you have to have something that you believe in other than yourself, because it is understood that sometimes we battle against something higher than ourselves, and we are not able to see it. We are not able to deal with it the right way. So this is where I would say the faith comes in. We all have ways of dealing with stuff, and it's more than 50% of us are turning to the wrong resources, outlets, if you will. And that very outlet, as I mentioned in one of my videos, can cause a problem later on. So it's best to be able to cope with things, to control your emotions the right way and deal with your situation head on. Because if you're trying to use other influences to deal with it, you have to come to, at some point in time, you've got to deal with reality here, because it'll be right there waiting for you when you come back. These are the things that we try to help with when we talk about controlling your emotions or having emotional intelligence. It all intertwines with midlife disappointments. Things are changing. It is constantly, nothing is staying the same. So to be able to adapt to not only your environment, but to the changes, it takes a certain mindset, and not all of us are able to cope with it. I've lost 2 family members back to back, and one of them, this is what I believe took him out. We really have to learn how to cope. And I have my issues as well. I am smiling and going about my day when I have my moments, but it is not easy. And if I am saying it's not easy for someone who pays attention to these things, I can tell you that these challenges that come at us in midlife is no joke. The things that we have to battle with, it's sad. And it takes getting used to it. It takes being able to cope. And that is where a lot of us collapse. We take these things on, and eventually our life takes the wrong turn. So it's a good idea to work to grow from within and to be able to build your emotional intelligence, to build your self-awareness. So when you have these different seasons, you're able to adapt. No one's saying it's going to be easy, but at least you will be prepared to make your adjustments as the seasons change, because it is no joke. It's very serious stuff. It's mind-boggling at the same time, but it's happening, and a lot of it is not under your control, and this is why you have to be able to do the chameleon thing. As it happens, you make your adjustments to keep yourself happy, stable, and healthy, because these things will affect your health. It can, it does, and it will. A lot of us advance in age and we do not grow as this occurs. We all can be childlike, but there has to be a time when you are stepping up to the plate as an adult. There are times that you're not going to be alone. You have children you're raising, whether you're in a marriage, a couple, or a single parent. You've got to have that level of maturity so you'll know which way to turn to keep things under control. That's super important, because with dealing with a generation of children at this point in time, that there are no principles. I mean, no one's thinking about what they're doing. No one is concerned about what effect it will take on the parent. These kids are just, we're getting stuff in all the time on what's taking place, and it is brutal. This generation has no respect for the elderly, for the parent. It's just, I don't know if it's because it's the computer age. I don't know what it is, but it's a different ball game. And it is very painful for a parent who is dealing with abusive adult children, because these are the very kids that you have given your all to, cut things short for, put things on hold for, to do your job as a parent. And then to be disrespected, to be abused, to be under any kind of manipulation, it's very painful as a parent. And these are parts of the disappointments that I'm talking about today. You have to be able to find a way to cope with this thing. I've had my experience with it as well. I have boy children, and when they turn into men, and at that point I was a single parent coming down to the end, so it's like the opposite sex. So it got very tricky, and I have a colonel mentality, like in the army. I do not play around. It still didn't stop anything, but I'm saying to you that if it is happening in your home, you have to get to that point where you're doing that tough love, because there will be no negotiating with this situation. The more you give is the more they take, and we are in a pandemic, and it's just more laxness going on, because now it's like you're responsible. It's not like an adult person that is sensitive to you being a parent. It is, you're responsible for me, but you can't tell me what to do. So it becomes very, very tricky, and it is a painful thing that some parents are undergoing at this time. So, we get to this point where it's time to live, and then you have all these unnecessary battles. You have to cope with your own life, making adjustments to your midlife, and yet you have a grown person latching onto your hip, and on top of that, they're disrespectful. So can you picture that? You get to this stage and you're ready to flap your wings, and this is what you're dealing with. That wasn't planned, just like the pandemic wasn't planned. But you have to be able to dress yourself for the different seasons. Like I said, we are up north. It gets to winter time. I'm not going to dress like this. I'm going to have a coat on, a scarf, gloves, hat. And so it's the same concept. When these different seasons, these these challenges, these disappointments pop up in your life, you have to be able to adjust to keep yourself happy, centered, and stable. And that's it in a nutshell. You know, I mean, we don't make the rules, we just have to be able to adjust as these things come up, because they will. Nothing stays the same. I guess you'd refer to our kids as millennials. We're baby boomers. I mean, whatever you want to say, it's still, you're the parent, and there should be a level of respect. There's a line that should not be crossed, and it is being crossed every day as we speak. So for that part of it, you've got to be able to adjust. But it's just a lot of different things. You know, you're on a job, you've spent all these years, you're comfortable, and one day you get called in, or you've decided that you can't go anymore because it's hazardous to your health. So these are the different disappointments that we are talking about, and we have to be able to make our moves, whether it's in a bad marriage, it's a job that is, you know, just threatening your health, your children at home that are adults and is not holding down their end of the bargain, you know, and is becoming parasitic in your home. You've got to slam the brakes on all of these different things and do what you have to do to keep yourself centered, stable, and happy. And it's not being selfish, it's just doing what you have to do to take care of you. These items that I'm talking about, you have to be built to cope with these different entities, because it can interfere with your balance. It can affect the way you look at life going forward. You know, anger and bitterness can come alive. These different experiences can definitely change someone's personality for the worst, you know, because you've got to have a certain mindset in order to see these horrible things happening and be able to turn the other cheek and stay in high spirits. And that's where I believe, for me, the faith comes in. We've been covering the disappointments in life, but we haven't really been getting deep into it, and it's serious. It's something to pay attention to. How do you turn the other cheek on something that's important to you, things that you weren't expecting to take place? So the adjustment thing, the chameleon thing, it's something that, you know, you've got to learn how to do. That's something that I admired about my dad. You know, we can't fight against the current. When something happens, you have to know how to, you know, how to circumvent and how to make adjustments so that you can survive in whatever environment you're in. Understand what you need to do to control it, because that is your circle. No one has control of that. You do. So this is important. Pulling back and really shutting down is not the way to go. You've got to have that sense of purpose. You've got to have that high spirit. You don't let anything interfere with that light that we were all blessed with. Get out, find things to do. And for me, you know, I like the beach. I swim, so when I'm taking vacation, it's usually around a nice beach. I lived in Miami a couple of years, so normally that's where I would run. The pandemic altered a lot of things that we do, so you don't have to board a plane to get out and enjoy your surroundings. There's a lot going on in your community. All you've got to do is just take that time to get involved and see what's going on. You don't want to not enjoy your life. You want to do what you have to do to bloom and stay looking and feeling your best at all times, regardless of what's going on around you. That's the skill that we're talking about when we say building your emotional intelligence. It basically means to be able to control your emotions. But we do not control what's happening around us. All we can do is to dress for the different seasons that take place. I mentioned this more than once. You know, we get into the winter season and I'm not going to dress like this, right? I'm going to put on my hat, my coat, my gloves, the same concept. You dress accordingly for the weather, and when you have these different episodes, you have to, move with the current. Do not try to go against the waves, because you will hurt yourself. We have to do what we have to do to stay healthy. You cannot change what's happening around you. You can't determine what the other person will do, but you can take the responsibility for what your reaction will be to all of it. We talk about these episodes, these different midlife experiences on an ongoing basis, especially now where we're in the pandemic, and every minute you're talking about a new variant coming out. You can't afford to worry about that stuff, but you can be responsible the best way you can to keep yourself away from this thing. What I'm saying is, live your life and do what you can to be happy, stay healthy, and grounded. Because at the end of the day, you want to move forward in the midlife years in the right way, and that is to be healthy. That's the overall goal here. Our health and well-being is one of the most important things, I believe, at this point, coupled with watching how we treat one another. And so I think if we approach life from this perspective, everything will just work itself out. We'll be able to cope with these painful disappointments and ultimately maintain our fruit of the Spirit, which is our peace, happiness, patience, having empathy, so that we can bloom as we move further into our midlife years. With all that's going on, I prefer to be happy. I prefer to be high on life, and I really don't let anyone interfere with that disposition, and you shouldn't either. It's important for us to be able to cope with things, to build our wisdom, and to just grow within ourselves. That's not happening for a lot of people, and so be it, but it should be our responsibility. There's so many things that can come and challenge our balance. I think it's important to learn to build ourselves as we go along. It's one thing to be young at heart, and it's another to be undeveloped, which is immature. It shouldn't be reversed. We should be growing as we go along. And this is what I believe is shutting us down. All of the different disappointments and bad experiences that we're having, it throws us into different things. Some of us are having depression. Some of us are dealing, with bipolar. This thing is taking a negative effect, and it's happening because of our coping skills. So there we are again with controlling emotions. Nothing will ever be the way we want it to be, but having the ability to adjust as these seasons come along, I think that's key. So that's my take on working with disappointments in midlife years. Take from it what you can. Thank you so much for sitting with me. I hope you'll be with us with the next session of Midlife Rises. Be well, and we will see you next time. Okay? Take care now. Hi, I just wanted to touch base a little bit. I'm driving down to the beach. When I get there, I will touch base again, but this is how you do it. You get out from your situation and you deflate. Yeah, this is how you do it. You just take that time, even if it's 3 days, when you feel like you just can't go anymore. If you can afford to, fly out. In my case, I run over to Miami a lot. It's close and it's convenient. So when I get to the beach, I'll touch base again. All right, see you in a little bit. Bye.